Hi, I'm Lan Davis Wilson, and I serve your Diversity, Missions, and Justice Ministries as part of the Conference Ministries for the United Methodists of Indiana. I'd like to talk just briefly today about culture and the role it plays in who we are as a church. First, let's define together what culture is. Culture comprises those norms, practices, rituals, and values which are taught to and learned by a group of people of a shared group or shared context. Now, often when we hear the word culture, the first things we think of are race and ethnicity. And quite often, especially in the United States, when we hear the word culture, we think of non white people. But the fact remains is that each one of us has culture and a cultural background, even you. And particularly for this conversation, it's important that we recognize that our churches have culture. That there are cultural things, cultural characteristics and identities within each one of our faith communities. And here are some examples of what congregational culture might look like. Use of God language, whether it's Father God or inclusive language. Customs like back to school Sunday or community vacation Bible schools. Pastor's anniversary or pastor's appreciation. Rituals like a women's retreat or confirmation celebrations. And then behaviors like whether we're confrontational or non confrontational, whether our committee members work collaboratively or independently, how we celebrate food together, the importance of fellowship hours or coffee hours or hoagie dinners or potlucks or food collections. Now, if you're watching this as a group, I invite you to pause the video now for a couple of moments to discuss some other examples of congregational culture from your own context that you might not see here on the slide. It's so important that we're aware of these things, as especially as we think about what it means to have fresh expressions in our faith communities. It's important because being aware of your congregation's culture and the culture of the community around you, and then being open to new organic culture developing as your fresh expression begins and grows, is what will distinguish between having an actual fresh expression and just a new type of meeting venue for the same people. When we leave room for God to lead as only God can, then the unimaginable begins to happen, and the spaces we cultivate for these fresh expressions begin to feel like heaven on earth. When we don't leave room for that organic culture to form, then we begin to box God in. We box our expectations in, and we box the growth potential for these fresh expressions in. So let's take the limits off. Let's take time to learn who we are and who we're trying to reach. And let's be intentional about leaving room for the divine move of God to happen as we build these new ministries.